Singlet on, ankle band on, step on the line, shake hands, tweet! You are now launched into one of the most fun activities and a fight for your life simultaneously. To win this fight, you must rely on your extensive conditioning and training, as well as having the courage to face your adversary across the mat. Hundreds of people are cheering you on, your teammates are shouting their encouragement, and your coaches are yelling moves for you to do next. It has taken you months, years, even decades to get to this point. This is what I love. This is wrestling. Excuse me. So, wrestling is very popular in sports in the Midwest and Northeast regions of the United States, such as Iowa, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. But it's not very popular in other states. One of those is my home state of Florida. But why does this matter? Why can't wrestling just be a sport that no one does? Well, the answer is wrestling is a great sport with many physical and mental benefits. All it needs is a little bit of exposure to thrive. The first time I saw wrestling on television was when I was in 7th grade. It was the 2013 National Championships, where Kyle Dake won his 4th national title. I was intrigued, and I wanted to learn more, but I never saw wrestling on television again, nor had I ever heard of a wrestling club, so I never really pursued it. Well, wrestling is only on major networks 5 times every 4 years. Once per year for the National Championships, and then once every 4 years for the Olympics. Other than that, it's only shown on specialty networks such as the Pac-12 and Big Ten networks. Wrestling also has very little exposure among kids. There were only 233,000 members of USA Wrestling, compared to over 3 million members of USA Soccer. And that doesn't even count kids that are enrolled in YMCA-type soccer programs. But why is wrestling such a great sport? Well, wrestling teaches kids toughness, discipline, and self-confidence. Wrestlers must be disciplined in order to become successful. Their practices are often long and grueling. They're every day after school for 2 to 3 hours. They consist of about a half hour of strength training and conditioning, then moving on to about an hour of drilling, and then the rest of practice for live wrestling. A wrestler must be disciplined and attend as many of these practices as he can, including weekend and morning practices if they're offered, to become the best wrestler he or she can. What's even more disciplined about being a wrestler, however, is nutrition. If a wrestler eats unhealthy food, they will become sluggish and sick on the mat. Healthy food must be eaten because it'll help heal the body after grueling matches, as well as giving a wrestler a competitive edge in order to be faster and more agile. But what's perhaps the most disciplined aspect of wrestling, and perhaps the hardest aspect of all, is making weight. Before a tournament, a wrestler must stand on the scale and weigh in at or below a certain weight class. Because of the size differences in everyone, and it would be very unfair if a 200-pound kid was wrestling a 100-pound kid, there are weight classes. In high school, that about 7% of the total population fits into one weight class. And before you can wrestle, you have to weigh in at or below your weight class. A wrestler can't eat fatty foods because he won't burn the fat off in time to weigh in under his weight class. And he can't carbo load the night before because he'll physically weigh too much and miss weight. And believe me, if you miss weight, you will incite the wrath of your coach because you can't wrestle. And that is something to be avoided. Unfortunately, this comes with the unhealthy practice of cutting weight, which is starving oneself in order to make a lower weight class. A lot of wrestlers do this, and it can't be fully eradicated. But there are measures in place to help curb this unhealthy practice. One such method is the Madison bracketing system, in which kids are weighed in with no weight classes, then are grouped in brackets of 4, 8, or 16 wrestlers that are closest in weight to each other. This practice is especially popular in youth wrestling tournaments. Wrestling also helps to build physical and mental toughness. A wrestler must be physically tough because if they give up as soon as they get thrown to the mat, they will never succeed. By attending grueling practices and lots of matches, a wrestler will build up a sense of physical toughness that will never leave them. But what may have a bigger effect on a wrestler, however, is their mental toughness. Mental toughness is a huge part of wrestling, and a lot of people can't handle it. Almost half of my wrestling team this year quit because they couldn't handle what wrestling takes. Making weight is a constant struggle because you have to watch what you eat every single day. In addition, wrestling is an individual sport. If you screw up, it's on you. There's no one else to blame. And the great wrestler Dan Gable once said, "Once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy." I think that has to relate to mental toughness and how wrestlers have to have it and how it relates to their everyday lives. When I first started wrestling, I was not mentally tough. I went in my matches and I just wanted to get it over with. But then I realized to become a better wrestler, I had to become more mentally tough. And I progressed and I started winning more matches as I became more mentally tough. Wrestling also builds a great sense of self-confidence. And this is especially important for middle and high school students. When I first started wrestling, when I first came into my freshman year, I was kind of a nobody. I didn't really know anyone, but that all changed when I started wrestling. I made a ton of friends, and I had an identity at school. I became a wrestler. If you tell someone you're a wrestler, they'll actually know something about you, and you have something to talk about and engage with them, which will help prevent kids from just clamming up and not engaging with anyone. And this will help a lot of kids who just feel like they're not interesting and they just want something to talk about. But what is perhaps the most noticeable benefit of wrestling are the physical benefits. Wrestling is a total body workout. It will whip anyone into shape. It improves your strength and cardio and your anaerobic and aerobic capacities. 6 minutes does not seem like a lot, but in a wrestling match, it feels like an eternity. When I first started wrestling, I was out of shape. I could not even last a full 6 minute match. But as you start wrestling, you attain such great physical qualities. Your endurance becomes much higher and you become much stronger. And it really helps you feel better about yourself. According to Forbes, wrestlers even make better employees, especially those who have wrestled at the college or elite levels. Wrestlers and athletes in general often have higher levels of emotional intelligence, which helps them empathize with other people and make better connections. Athletes in general also have better communication skills, and they often have great focus. This is where wrestlers come in handy, because they know that they can handle whatever is thrown at them, like leading a huge team or managing a huge project, because they have that mental toughness. Because they've lasted all of those grueling practices, those 2 days, those morning practices. They know that anything they do will not be harder than their wrestling practices. In conclusion, why does this all matter? Why did I just tell you all this information about wrestling? Well, it can actually help solve a lot of problems that we're facing today. As you might know, childhood obesity is becoming a huge epidemic. And I think wrestling is a great way to stop that. It's a fun and easy way to get your energy out. And as a combat sport, it can even help get out some pent-up feelings in a controlled manner. In addition, it can help a lot of kids that are struggling with self-esteem issues, as it can get them in better shape and give them something to talk about and be engaged with other people. And if you're that kid who wants to feel better about himself, who wants something to talk about, who wants to be somebody, go to usawrestling.com and join a wrestling club. You'll be glad you did. Thank you very much.